Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, we're going to do a deep dive into a story that you might not believe when you first hear it. It's about Cole Younger, the infamous Wild West outlaw, and Blessed Solanus Casey, who you probably know was a Capuchin priest. Blessed Solanus Casey was known for his ministry of healing. You might be wondering what in the world could connect these two men. It all starts with a wooden chest and a story about faith and transformation. It's a story of God's mysterious ways.
It is a fascinating story, you're right. It really speaks to the power of conversion and all the unexpected ways that God uses to work through people and objects.
So let's start with Cole Younger, I guess. A lot of people know him from the James Younger gang, right? I mean, these guys were serious criminals, weren't they? We're talking about bank robberies and train robberies. I mean, really daring stuff all across the West. And they were involved in the famous Northfield, Minnesota raid back in 1876. Didn't really go well for them, though, did it?
No, not at all. The gang thought they could just go in and out really quickly and get the money, but it turned into a violent shootout with the townspeople. Cole was shot 11 times. They were really outnumbered. Cole and his brothers, Jim and Robert, were captured there, and then they were sentenced to prison.
Wow, 11 times. That's a lot. Makes you wonder if that pain and facing the consequences of his actions is what made him want to convert later on.
Yeah, it's possible. Prison can be a place that makes you think about the choices you've made in your past.
But, even before they were outlaws, the Youngers had a strange back and forth with faith. I mean, they robbed and stole. But then there are stories about them joining a church choir while they were on the run in Texas. Can you imagine that? Hiding their identities and singing hymns with everyone else? What do you think about that?
I think it shows how complicated they were. Maybe it was a way to feel better about what they were doing or to justify it to themselves. Or maybe it was a genuine expression of their faith, just misguided. It seems like they were fighting with themselves.
It's pretty interesting. Let's go back to the prison, though, because that's where Barney Casey comes into this story. He was a guard at Stillwater Prison. But he wasn't like your typical guard, I don't think. He was really nice, and he was genuinely concerned for the prisoners.
Yeah, Barney Casey was remarkable. He was only 17, working in a really tough environment with dangerous criminals. But he still chose to be compassionate and to care about them. He even befriended the younger brothers and treated them with respect, even though they were criminals. It's kind of an early sign of the empathy that would make him Blessed Solanus Casey later on.
Yeah, 17, that is young. Okay, so I know our listeners are interested in how Blessed Solanus helped Cole Younger to convert, and we'll get to that. But first, what about this wooden chest? Cole gave this chest to Barney as a parting gift when he was leaving prison. Do we know what was in it? Was it some kind of treasure chest from all their robberies or something?
I know that would be an exciting story, but it was probably just a simple wooden chest. It probably held his personal belongings. We don't know exactly what was in there, but it's the gesture that matters. It seems like there was trust and respect between Cole and Barney. Maybe Cole saw something good in this young man.
It's wild to think that this chest was a part of both of their journeys. It connects them,
Oh, I know. It's really a powerful symbol. Our lives are connected in ways we don't know, and God can use anything, even a chest that belonged to an outlaw, to fulfill his plan. Think about it. This chest was used to carry the belongings of someone devoted to God.
It's pretty incredible. Okay, so Barney Casey is deeply affected by everything that happened at Stillwater, but then he sees something terrible. While he was a streetcar conductor, he saw a woman get murdered right in front of him. That must have really messed him up.
It really was a turning point in his life. It woke him up spiritually. Barney felt called to dedicate his life to serving God, to bring some good into a world that seems so dark and awful.
It seems like he needed to find a way to make sense of the suffering he saw, both in the prison and on the streets. It makes sense. So he decides to join the seminary. You'd think that would be easy for someone who's clearly called to serve God, but it sounds like it wasn't that easy for Barney.
Yeah, you're right, it wasn't. He had a hard time. Academically, it was tough for him. And he was even dismissed from one of the seminaries. Can you imagine how discouraged he must have felt? But he didn't give up. Barney just kept believing that God had a plan for him. His faith was strong.
It's a good reminder for all of us. He could have just given up, but he kept going and trusted God. So what happened?
Well, he ended up in Detroit because he felt like that's where God wanted him to be. He said he had a strong feeling about it. And it's pretty amazing because he arrived at the Capuchin Franciscan community on Christmas Eve in 1896. And guess what? He was carrying all his stuff in that same wooden chest that Cole Younger gave him. That outlaw's chest was now carrying the things that a future priest needed. And it arrived at the place where he would end up devoting his life to God.
Wow, that gives me chills. Okay, but his journey wasn't over yet, right? Because he was ordained, but not as a regular priest. Can you explain that? What is a simplex priest?
Well, because Barney had struggled academically, he was ordained as a simplex priest. And that meant that he couldn't preach or hear confessions. So his role was limited, but Father Solanus, that's what he was called now, he accepted it. He was really humble. He trusted that God could still work through him, even with those limitations.
Yeah, and God did work through him. People loved Father Solanus. He was so kind and compassionate, and his faith was so strong. People said he could heal and answer prayers. I mean, people came from all over to see him.
It makes you wonder if all that time with the younger brothers changed him. Maybe seeing their good side, even though they were criminals, helped him to see the good in everybody.
That's a good point. He saw that people who had done bad things could still change and be good, so maybe that's why he believed that everyone deserved a chance no matter what they'd done. It's really powerful. So let's talk about Cole Younger again for a minute. He eventually got paroled, and then he was pardoned. But the most important thing is that he converted to Christianity. He really changed.
Yeah, it wasn't just a small change. He fully believed it. And get this, he spent the rest of his life traveling around and telling people not to commit crimes. He shared his story with everyone. I mean, the guy who used to rob banks was now preaching against it.
It's amazing. What's really interesting to me is the timing. Because Cole's conversion happened not that long after Barney Casey became Father Solanus. Do you think there's a connection?
It's hard to know for sure, but it's interesting to think about maybe those conversations they had in prison. Barney being so kind to him, maybe that helped Cole to start thinking about faith. And then years later, he converted.
Well, and we can't forget about that chest that connected them. Do we know if they ever met again after Cole was released?
It doesn't seem like they did. At least there's no record of it. But maybe in a way they were still connected, spiritually. Cole found redemption and spent his life trying to help others avoid making the same mistakes he did. And Father Solanus, he dedicated his life to God and helped people who were hurting.
It's like they're both trying to make up for the past, but in different ways.
They both show how powerful conversion can be and how God works in mysterious ways. It's pretty amazing.
So true. So what about the chest? What happened to it in the end?
Well, after Father Solanus passed away, they kept the chest at the Capuchin monastery in Detroit. They actually kept it as a relic, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's a real reminder of the connection between a famous outlaw and a humble priest. And it's a symbol of how powerful faith and forgiveness can be.
That's amazing. Thinking about the people listening to this who are all devout Catholics, what are some things they could learn from all of this?
Yeah, it really is. It makes you think about things differently. So you have Cole Younger, who did all these terrible things and then completely turned his life around. He spent his last years trying to bring people closer to God. And then there's Father Solanus, a humble priest who never let his limitations stop him from helping others. What an amazing story.
It shows that God's grace can reach anyone, no matter what they've done. Cole Younger's life is proof that even the people we think are lost can come back to God. And Father Solanus teaches us how powerful humility and compassion can be. I think our listeners, who are devout Catholics, can really appreciate the importance of prayer and intercession in this story. I mean, Father Solanus was known for his deep prayer life, right? And for being able to intercede for others. Well, we don't know for sure if he prayed for Cole Younger's conversion, but it's a beautiful thing to think about.
Yeah. It is. We should never underestimate the power of prayer, especially when we pray for people who are far from God or who seem like they'll never change. Our prayers can make a difference even if we can't see it right away.
It's like planting a seed. It might take time to grow, but God can make something beautiful out of it.
Exactly. And we should try to see the good in everyone, just like Father Solanus did. Even in people who seem hardened or lost, we should offer compassion and kindness, especially to those who need it most.
It makes you think about the people in our own lives who we've judged or given up on. Maybe there's someone who seems far from God. Maybe we can be like Barney Casey and offer them kindness and listen to them. Maybe even say a prayer for them. We might be surprised at what happens.
That's a good point. It all comes back to this. What does this story mean for us? How can we take what we've learned about Cole Younger and Blessed Solanus Casey and apply it to our own faith journey?
It's a question we should all think about. They show us that God's plan is bigger than we can understand. He can use anyone and anything to do anything His will. It teaches us to trust God even when things seem impossible, and to be open to how He might be working in our lives and in the lives of those around us, even in ways we don't expect.
I like that. It's like how that wooden chest went from an outlaw to a priest. It's a reminder that our own experiences, even the tough ones, can be used by God to change us and bring us closer to Him.
It really is inspiring. So as we go about our day, let's remember Cole Younger and Blessed Solanus Casey. Let their journeys inspire us. And let's try to be the kind of people who bring God's grace into the world by offering compassion, hope, and prayer to everyone who needs it. That's all for today, everyone. Until next time, keep searching and keep the faith.